Hi, everyone. My name is Alex. I'm from Matter Labs, where we work on ZK Zinc, a scaling solution for Ethereum. And we saw, okay, right. Yeah, because we all have a problem. No matter what your interest in crypto is, like DeFi, building dApps, investing in crypto startups, doing any other things, you will only have success if you can reach mass market. Like if we can scale crypto to the mainstream adoption, but not just bring it to a lot of people. We have to maintain the properties which make crypto valuable, such as it has to be permissionless. You should be able to verify all the transactions, not relying on any other parties doing it for you without like who you don't trust. And it should be censorship resistant. So powerful adversaries should not be able to oppose it. So you can try to do it with, like, layer ones have a difficulty to solve all of this at once at scale because they have to focus on security. So maybe they will succeed, maybe not, but in Ethereum, we have a large ecosystem. To bootstrap an ecosystem is difficult, so let's see what we can do in an existing ecosystem like Ethereum. So let's look at layer 2. There's been a number of approaches of solving scalability in layer 2. Can we do it with sidechains? Not really, because they've been around for a very long time and they never really took off because they require too much trust in like a lot of people. A lot of people have to be trustworthy in order for sidechains to work. So they don't work. Can we do it with payment channels or more generic state channels? Well, here we have a number of problems. Oh, I'm sorry, the slide formats. But essentially, really a lot of problems. They are vulnerable to online attacks on the nodes. So people running like Lightning nodes, for example, do not feel safe because all the funds can be taken if the node is attacked. They are very capital inefficient because you have to park a lot of capital, open channels for each person, and they're not generic. You have to reopen the channel every time the capacity is exhausted and so on. And they're also not generic in the sense that you cannot have transactions from multi-party to multi-party. So you really need something like a sidechain, but more universal and more trustless. So what about Plasma? Well, Plasma was a very promising step in this direction, but it turned out, unfortunately, Plasma is kind of dead right now. So I'm referring to this great article by Dragonfly guys who explored it in detail. But the thing was, there were just too many devils in the detail of implementation, just technical pitfalls, most important being the data availability issue. So, but what about the rollup? There is a nice successor of Plasma. Well, turns out a number of companies who were previously focused on either sidechains or state channels or Plasma are now doing rollups. So I also believe that rollup is the most feasible way to scale Ethereum today. Vitalik is talking a lot about this. Everybody is like, rollup is the thing right now. But there is a catch. There are two different rollups. The one is called Optimistic, and the other is called ZK rollup. How many of you know what's the difference? Okay, not many people. So I actually have an article about this, which goes in great detail about the differences in technical analysis, but I'm going to give a high-level overview right now. So let's start with optimistic rollup. And I'm sorry about the formatting. We just changed it from Keynote to PowerPoint. So the optimistic rollup, to me, it resembles a lot a caravanserai. So it's a fortress in the middle of a desert where merchants come, like it's an intersection of trade routes, and you come there with your goods, you enter, you submit the goods to the guards. So we have a few roles here. We have guards. They are fair, or rather, well, maybe not so fair because they are represented by Ethereum miners. So whatever they do will be done. So you kind of trust them because you're living this empire anyway. And if you don't trust the guards, they can take anything from you, no matter what you do. So you submit it to them, they are fair. They're supposed to do what, like if you give them fair evidence of whatever, they will act on this regard. And now there are people who actually own the caravanserai, and you go and you make trades with other merchants, and they help you. They keep the track of all trades. So you don't physically exchange the goods, you just make a public ledger on some parchment, and you just record, like I give you 2 camels, you give me 5 sacks of grain, and so on. And then at the end, once you've done trading, you want to leave the caravanserai, and you go to the guards and tell them, so this and this and these goods belong to me. Now I want to leave. So what the guard does is they take the goods, place it in one of the towers, and make an announcement and say, like, this guy wants to leave with his goods. Is he okay? Shall I let him out? And then anybody can come to the guard and tell him, no, it's not right. Like, look, we have some trades here which do not belong. He cheated. He didn't get this stuff from me, right? But the problem is, it's not only from me. Like, you actually have to track all the trades, because maybe there have been some trades, like you gave me a camel, we had a fair trade, but you didn't own the camel in the first place, right? So you need to track it all the way back. So we rely on these guys. They should track it for you, because it's a lot of work. I mean, anybody could theoretically go and check all the records on the ledger, but it's unrealistic. Nobody has incentive. Like, these guys, they get a profit. They own the place. So, like, if at least one of them is honest and actually does his job and comes to the guard and tells him, then you will be fine. If not, then somebody could just take all the gold and walk away one day because nobody is there to stop him. So there is like this tricky balance of trust incentives. You might decide to trust it, you might not decide to trust it, but I mean, it's a low-tech technology. What do you expect from a caravanserai? You know, like, you don't have better means. But my focus is now on how it feels to you. Like, you want to leave, but you cannot leave immediately. You always have to wait a certain period of time. And in terms of Ethereum, it's at least 1 week. You cannot leave an optimistic rollup until there's been some time to notify the Ethereums. Like, somebody has to submit the transaction. Ethereum may be jammed. There might be like denial of service attacks on the rollup operators and so on. So 1 week at least. So how does it compare to a ZK rollup? Well, ZK rollup is more like this. Like, it's a high-tech solution. Anybody can walk in, make some trades, purchase some stuff, walk out with stuff or without stuff. Every single transaction is tracked. But it's tracked in a non-intrusive way, and it's almost instant. You just walk out, and like, if you stole something, it will immediately ring, and you're going to be stopped, right? So, like, this is the comparison. So obviously, I'm biased. I believe that this is what we should be doing in 2020, and this is why we built ZK Sync on the principles of ZK Rollup. So you can think of ZK Sync as Ethereum on layer 2. Which is secured by zero-knowledge proofs. But it has a number of properties which are different to Ethereum. So what is same is we mirror the security of layer 1. So whatever security you have on layer 1, your funds in a rollup are as secure as layer 1, period. Like, we guarantee that, unless there are bugs, of course. But it's going to have censorship resistance. So if the operators do not like you, you can always withdraw your funds no matter what. But it has some differences. So we will support Visa scale throughput, and we will have instant confirmations. Like, there are tools which allow us to do this. So here is our roadmap. We spent the last year essentially focusing on the fundamentals of zero-knowledge proofs, because the previous technologies which we had, like the state-of-the-art proving system, was Groth 16, and it required application-specific trusted setup, and we cannot now think of an application-specific trusted setup of anything but a testnet. So, like, the MVP which we're going to launch very soon is going to be based probably on Plonk, a universal setup system. We had a universal ceremony done together with Adstack. I mean, they initiated it, we participated, with a lot of highly prominent people also taking part in it. We also have a Redshift which is a completely transparent proof system, and which is much more efficient for recursion, which we need for smart contracts, which we're probably going to use in the second step. So there's going to be some combination of them. But now this part is done. So we have a very solid basis. We can generate the proofs really fast. And now we're going to start with cheap ERC20 token transfers with an account-based model like in Ethereum. So you move your funds in, and you can transact really cheaply with the same guarantees of security as Ethereum. Smart contracts, privacy, and decentralized governance comes later. And if you're interested in smart contracts, please come to my talk the day after tomorrow, where I'm going to talk about Zinc, our smart contract, ZKP programming framework, which we're going to use for smart contracts. But I want to highlight some UX properties of ZK Sync, like what really differentiates it now. Well, first of all, you will be able to use any wallet. And you don't have to be online. You open the wallet whenever you need it, you make a transaction, and you walk away. So it's just as good as the mainnet Ethereum. You will be able to use any wallet because we integrated a secret derivation from the keys in the wallet, but we actually have a two-factor protection. So every transaction will be signed by the wallet inside the wallet, as well as by the keys in the application which we have, which is going to be double-checked. So I can explain technical details later, but it's really hard to, somebody to steal your funds will have to break a few things, including your wallet. Now, you are going to share the same address which you have on your wallet, and with wallets, by the way, you also can use universal login wallets, something like Argent or multi-sig wallets. It all will work as well, right? So whatever address you have there, you will have in the ZK Sync, and you will just have something like ZK ETH, ZK DAI, ZK whatever, as separate tokens which appear in your account under the same address. And then you can send them to somebody else, and we promise you that the confirmation times are going to be really fast, no matter how many transactions are there, because we have now universal proof system. We can afford to support multiple types of blocks really easily, and we have universal blocks. So like all types of transactions in the block are mixed. Deposits, exits, transfers to new accounts, everything is mixed, and we just fill the block as much as we can, and if the timeout triggers, we submit these blocks to be proven and submitted to Ethereum. And what's really interesting that it gives us out-of-box gasless meta transactions. So you as a user do not need to own any Ether or to make any transactions on Ethereum whatsoever in order to use ZK Sync. So all you do is you have your wallet, you connect, you get an address, or you don't need to connect, you just take your wallet, you see your address, you give it to somebody, they send you tokens in ZK Sync, maybe Ether, maybe tokens, you see them in your account, anytime you can just connect, use it, send to somebody else, or send to your Ethereum address, all without doing anything on Ethereum mainnet. It's all going to be done as a meta transaction inside ZK Sync for you. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. We follow the philosophy, it just works. It should just work. So you have a demo, please go check it out for yourself. We don't have the beautiful designs yet. They are coming in a couple of weeks, but it's a more simple version, but it has all the functionality. So it works. And yeah, please follow us on Twitter. And that's it. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Hey, do you need spam protection on your meta transactions?
Not really, because you're going to pay for them. You pay a small amount, which covers the cost.
Okay,
So you pay you pay fees in the token which is being transferred. So if it's DAI, then you pay some small cent.
Okay, yeah, makes sense.
And we also have a protection against overflow of addresses in this zero knowledge proof as well. But eventually, we will be able to support universal accumulators, which have almost infinite capacity, like Ethereum. So it won't be a problem at all.
So how does the meta transaction system works? Do you have like relayers? Are there permissionless? Can I be a relayer? How does it work?
How it works is you have operators or validators of ZK Sync. So you always interact with them. You send them a transaction which is signed off-chain, and they execute it for you. They take your transaction and put it in the block. Then this block, when it's full or like to some degree complete, we generate the proof for you and submit it to Ethereum. So when I say we, I mean the validators. Now, in the first version, we're going to launch with just us being the single validator. But eventually, this is the part of the roadmap. We have decentralized governments, and anybody will be able to become a validator. So this is very, very fundamental for us. Like, this is one of the core values. This is why we're doing this thing. We don't want a centralized solution. We are building something which is going to be completely open. You will be able to become validator even if you don't want to purchase like tokens from anybody else. So like, there will be a way for you to completely permissionlessly become a validator in the ZK Sync framework, network, sorry.
So in fact, related also to fees. Part of the question was already answered, but who decides what's listed? How do you decide about the fees? Is it constant? Is it going to be somehow like the team will decide? So
for now, we're going to operate at break-even capacity. So the fees are going to be comprised of the cost of block production, so zero knowledge proof generation, plus a small gas fraction, which you always have in a rollup. So for us, a simple transfer costs 16 bytes on the main chain. Mm-hmm. So for each transfer, we have to put 16 bytes there, which is something like 300 gas. So we will have to pay for this. If Ethereum gas goes up, we will have to raise the prices a little bit, so it will be 0-something cent. The zero knowledge part is going to be cheap, and it's getting way cheaper with accelerated proving.
But so it's going to be fixed or somehow
fixed.
So
who decides? The operators decide. So in the beginning, we are going to be the only operator, while during the active development of ZK Sync. Once we transition to decentralized governance, we will give it over to the marketplace. Like essentially, the miners will decide, just like miners on Ethereum.
Okay. So for some microtransactions, it may not work, I guess.
They will work. Why not? I mean,
well, if the cost of the transaction will be pretty big.
Define microtransactions.
Yeah, I don't know. Fraction of cent?
It will be less than a fraction of cent, unless Ethereum gas costs go up so much that they will have to be compensated. So you always have this 300 gas plus some fraction of the proof, but it's going to be amortized among 1,000 transactions. So let's say 300 gas per transaction is going to remain. This is the price for data availability, which we pay, which solves like so many problems. This is what makes Rollup different from Plasma.
Sure. And like the second question is about, so I mean, to confirm one transaction, I still need to wait for a block on Ethereum, yes, which will validate the proof.
Oh, this is a good question.
And so then the question is like, if I want to follow up on continue to a second transaction which depends on the past transaction, I need to wait, right?
This is a great question. You don't have to wait. This is precisely why we have universal blocks. So you submit a transaction, you get a confirmation instantly from the validators. In the beginning, while we are operating this, let's say in the first version, this confirmation is just a promise from us. We promise we're gonna keep our word. We're just gonna include it in the next block. Once you have a confirmation, you can immediately start using it. So I send it to you, you see it immediately, you can immediately send it to somebody else, and you can already try it out in the demo. Now, in the future versions, this promise is also going to be backed by obligation. So you will actually have as strong guarantee that your transaction is going to be included, as though you would have confirmations on Ethereum.
Okay, and how do you protect about some forks? So let's say, even though I received a confirmation from one operator, there is an operator who, for some reason of a network partitioning, decides that building his own block and
Inside ZK Sync, or you mean on the interaction between layer 1 and ZK Sync?
I don't remember. I don't know, like inside, right? I
Oh,
guess.
okay, so inside is very simple. We're going to have a separate consensus mechanism. So we're working on a separate consensus where the blocks are going to be produced approximately once a second. So we are going to use Facebook hot stuff. We did some experiments with it. We experimented with Tendermint and hot stuff, and we decided in favor of hot stuff because it's written in Rust, which all our code base is written in, and also because hot stuff is better suited for the type of consensus which we need, because our validators are they will have to need powerful resources anyway. So hot stuff better adjusts to the network latencies and network partitioning than Tendermint. But eventually they're just going to come to consensus, and you will have a confirmation from 2/3 of all validators. And once you have that, we can always punish only the validators who equivocated, not the rest.
Thanks.
Please.
Kind of related, I guess the censorship resistance depends upon having enough validators in the ZK Sync network, right?
This is also a good question. So we have different kinds of censorship resistance. Number one is that you will always be able to withdraw to Ethereum. So this is a given. This is not this relies on the properties of Ethereum, not on properties of ZK Sync. Now, you also want transactions inside ZK Sync not to be censored. So we're going to have a number of validators, but not as many as in Tendermint. So we're not going to have hundreds of validators acting simultaneously at the same time, which is not enough to guarantee censorship resistance because they could all collude. So what we're going to do is we're going to have something like a stake held by a role which we call guardians. So there's going to be like a lot of users with very low computational resources, like a normal laptop, unsecured. They do not need to be super secure because they cannot be hacked and they're never going to be slashed. And they will vote who will become the validators. So their interest is that they hold the tokens which are locked for a longer period of time. So if they misbehave, the value of the network will go down.
Is that like a human voting? Like
no, it's going to be automatic. So the reason why their computers are unsecured or like not supposed to be super secure is the only thing they check for is censorship. So if they see a transaction which is not included in like next couple of blocks for no good reason, because the blocks are not completely at capacity, then the validators who do this will not the users will be able to attribute the fault to those validators, because we always have this speaker-listener dilemma that it's subjective. You cannot objectively attribute fault of censorship. But every user for themselves can know this, and they will just stop voting for these validators. Now, why we can do this in ZK Sync is because our security does not depend on the trust of validators. So we don't care. Even if you have one validator, they can never cheat. They can never create incorrect state. They can never steal anything because it's all secured through zero-knowledge proofs, which are verified on Ethereum on layer 1. So you essentially, like, you can just have one. So the only thing which we need token and the guardians for is to prevent censorship.
So you're going to have your own token, right? For this
We need it to govern the participation in this anti-censorship resistance.
But couldn't you just use, I don't know, DAI?
No, we couldn't, because we need an incentive for these people to act honestly. So how would you incentivize them if they held DAI? DAI is not connected to the success of this network.
Yeah, you would need to slash them.
Yeah, so we would need to slash them, and this will increase the barrier of entry. This is what we see now with the validators, like I don't know, like Binance comes and says, we're going to give you validation for free, and a lot of people go to them because they're afraid to operate their own networks. Like you're not an expert in security, you cannot protect yourself if it's running 24/7 in some cloud, you know, people have access to it. So you will only operate your own like full node if it's secure for you. So it's cheap and secure to operate Ethereum or Bitcoin full node. I mean, it's not as cheap. It's going to be much cheaper with ZK Sync because you don't have to verify every transaction. You just monitor for a fraction of network traffic, and if you detect something, then you behave. Sure.
This token, this ZK Sync token,
Yes.
how can you exchange it for Ether?
It's just going to be ERC20 token. So you will be able to, you will essentially stake on Ethereum, not on ZK Sync. You stake on Ethereum, and then you get rights to produce blocks or to participate in the consensus of ZK Sync. No more questions? Okay, thank you.